Hello, everybody. As promised in class on Tuesday, we are going to be talking about different theories of human behavior, which I did a great job getting everyone excited for. But it really is good content. It is something that helps kind of guide our understanding of human behavior, which we're going to kind of quick flesh out in this lecture video. So, what you can expect from class today, our learning objectives are to kind of touch base about why do we utilize theory and research when working with humans, and then covering four of the perspectives and theories, which are focused on the sociological, I cannot say these words, aspect, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit more in an upcoming slide. So, why do we do theory and research? So, not this semester, but in upcoming semesters, you will all have to take social work research. And you also have to take statistics. So, obviously, the CSWE, the Council of Social Work Education, has identified that research and understanding outcomes is essential to being a social worker. But why is that? They're useful for thinking about changing situations of persons and environments. So we are not static individuals. Humans are ever changing, ever evolving. Our environments are changing. Our biology is changing. Our ideas and perspectives and viewpoints in the world are constantly changing. And so we have to be able to adapt to looking at others and trying to figure out why they're doing what they're doing. And so sometimes we can get stuck from our end, looking for information and kind of quitting the understanding process too early. That could be from biases or assumptions or just limited information, or just not having the tools to be able to think critically around situations. And so theories give us different frameworks and lenses to look through in regards to clients and client situations. So they'll assist us in getting greater knowledge. So it might help direct us to ask specific questions or to approach things from a different angle, because that'll help us give a different perspective on a situation. It's good to note that not every theory will be applicable and helpful in every situation. And sometimes it just might not logically make sense, or it might not get us information that can move the problem-solving process further, but they're still all good to know. Let's get past that side. So that was just kind of summarizing why the CSWE, like where it falls into their educational policies. And it just basically says it's important to know theories of human behavior when working with all groups of individuals. So some key terms your textbook highlighted, and I want to highlight as well. As there's kind of this tier of research and problem solving, is you start out with a hypothesis. So these are tentative statements that you want to explore and test. What's important to know about hypotheses is that they're not factual or truth that you can apply. So, for example, hypothesis might be, I'm looking out my window right now and it's sunny. So my hypothesis would be that it is nice and warm outside, so I can go swimming in my kiddie pool and I won't freeze. So I want to explore and test a situation. I am basing it on my observations, prior knowledge, but it's not a fact because I haven't tested it yet. It's just something that I'm proposing. And so theories kind of take that broad general statement and start to specify it in some ways. I like the word organize. That gets thrown out a lot with the discussion around theories, is helping organize. So I am going to apply, this is a made-up theory, the theory of good weather, which means when the sun is out in September, it might be warm. So I'm going to apply that theory. It's something that has been established. It's looking at weather patterns in previous history. So concepts within my fictional theory of good weather is that sun produces heat. That's a concept. It's a fact. September is not winter, and so winter is typically cold. So I have some concepts that I know to be true that might help support or not support my hypothesis. So assumptions as well as this, they're beliefs that are held to be true without testing or proof. So I could make the assumption that the presence of sunshine automatically means bathing suit weather. I'm assuming that. We don't know that that's true because obviously the sun shines during the winter time, but I could go and operate on that assumption, go outside and freeze myself. So the book gives those definitions if you want to read further. Actually, you should have read further by now. But those are important ones to kind of know because that builds on each other. So I kind of put this little slide together by taking an actual theory, not a made-up one, called the good weather theory. So there's a theory called the trauma theory that states that traumatization occurs when both the internal and external resources of an individual are inadequate to cope with an external threat. So if we think about the trauma of let's say a refugee, and so who experienced some sort of war or conflict in their country of origin. And so the external threat would be the war, and they didn't have the coping skills or the external resources to not experience some sort of trauma or emotional response from that. So that is the theory that when traumatization occurs, it occurs when the external and internal aren't sufficient enough. So a concept that we would have to understand regarding trauma in order to apply the theory is that trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. So it kind of gives that definition and specifiers within the theory. Otherwise, we might not know exactly what we are measuring. So a proposition within the theory is if someone experiences a traumatic event, it'll alter the way that one acts, thinks, feels, and views themselves and the world. So we have this broad theory saying that there's a thing called traumatization, and something is going to be altered when the internal external resources aren't adequate. And so the proposition begins to specify that even more, that it's going to alter oneself in these specific ways. So if I take all of this very vague, generalized information and look at my client that I'm working with, now I didn't use a refugee in this situation, I used a child who experienced a traumatic event, I am making the assumption, because I have this theory that external events can cause traumatization, which can alter the way one acts, feels, operates within the world. I'm going to assume that my client, who's a child, whose parents went through a rather nasty divorce, will have developed maladaptive coping behaviors. So I'm making the assumption that this traumatic event has altered my client's behavior in a negative way. So it helps me look at, so if the traumatic event is the divorce, it's helping me organize and understand why my child might be acting out in a certain way because they don't have the proper coping skills to be able to navigate the divorce. I know that's a lot to mull over. I think that's why I tend to get a little whiny about theories. They're super important. 1,000% important. There's just a lot of words with it. And so when you're a student versus a practitioner, sometimes it's hard to figure out how to relate them to situations because you haven't experienced hearing client stories or observed different situations that you'd be able to apply them to. So you're learning, and we're trying to teach you how to think critically using these tools, but you don't necessarily have the experiences yet. So we'll flesh this more out in class, or if you have questions, and then some of the learning activities on this will kind of help that. But it is a little bit clunky when you're starting to learn them and process them synthesize them. So some final terms around theory and research. You're going to want to understand objective versus subjective reality. Objective is kind of that external, factual things that can be kind of proved. It's kind of more of that rational, void of emotion reality. Subjective is a personal perception. So objectively, the Lions are not the best NFL team based on record and performance. But subjectively, they might be the best team to me because I have an undying love for the city of Detroit and for cheering for the underdog. The subjective reality is that they're the best. The objective reality is that they are not the best. And when you start to incorporate research, they kind of mirror the objective and subjective. Quantitative research methods are areas of research where you present your findings and numbers. They're very concrete, very X, Y, and Z. So that'd be like if you took a poll and 9 out of 10 people thought the Lions were the best team. That would be a quantitative research. Qualitative is more of the verbal and narrative. And so it's kind of the telling of stories. So if you're taking a assessment of a class and you get the like, please tell me what you enjoyed about this class. And you do a short little blurb about, oh my goodness, I love Professor Hoffman. She's like the best person ever. While that may be true, that is your telling of the story that can't necessarily be measured because it's just providing firsthand experience. They're both very valuable, but they also provide a different role and measurement of outcome. All right. So that is just kind of a brief introduction into the importance of theory and research. And so now I'm going to break down we're going to do 4 theories today. I'll break them down into 4 different videos to kind of break things up a little bit. And then we'll do some learning activities around those.